Good morning. I'm Reverend Tony, about to go out for a walk with my dog Pancake. And this morning I'm pondering the different ways we can think about hope. Take a walk with us. We'll look at 3 different ways to think about hope. Before we get into today's ponderings, just a quick reminder that if you could please like, follow, subscribe, share, leave us a comment. That helps us out a lot. Thank you very much. So let's take a look at hope from 3 different angles today.
One is Miguel de la Torre's theology of hopelessness.
Another is hope punk. And yet a third is theological virtue.
Miguel de la Torre is a theologian.
He argues that hope is only for middle-class white people, privileged white people, who really don't have to deal with oppression, and they can invest their optimism in vague hopes that things will get better without having to really do the fighting and the work required for justice, equality, equity, and making things fair for everybody and taking care of everyone. He's got a point. Austin Channing Brown says that for white people, hope is just blind optimism. But for black people and other people of color, hope is duty. It's a requirement to fight the good fight, because many generations got us to a place where we can have a little better, and it's our job to continue that progress forward to a world that will be a world as it should be, not a world necessarily as it is. So there's a point there that if we only think of hope as blind optimism, it's not really worth much, especially because the realities of the world, especially for the oppressed, are not something that we can just say, oh, it'll be better tomorrow. Hope punk is one of my new favorite ways to look at hope. Hope punk is a term coined by writer Alexandra Rowland a few years ago, I think 2017, in response to a way to battle what's called grimdark. And grimdark is a type of sci-fi fantasy literature that's kind of post-apocalyptic, nihilistic, hopeless. Nothing matters. What if it did? There's no real heroes. Even the protagonists really aren't great people. Think of things like, The Sopranos or Game of Thrones. And she said the antidote to that is hope punk. Hopeful that it continues to strive for what's good and what's right against all odds. It's got the punk because it's rebellious and it reacts and resists injustice and oppression. And I think that's a great kind of hope to have, hope punk, because it allows us to escape Miguel de Toro's hopelessness syndrome, where hope is just blind, privileged optimism, and acknowledge that, yeah, things are really difficult. But we can have hope because we can believe that nothing can deter us from the right course of character for striving for the future that dreams of a world as it could be, not a world as it is. And that together we have the resources, divine and human, to justify that kind of faith that we will get there. We may lose battles along the way, and we may be like Martin Luther King telling everybody he's not going to get to the promised land with them. But together as a people, we will get there. That's hope punk. And hope punk's a hope worth trusting in and having faith in. It's not just blind optimism. It doesn't ignore the needs and plight of the truly oppressed and repressed around the world. The third way to look at hope is as a theological virtue. Theological virtues are hope, faith, and charity, or love. And they are called theological virtues because in classical theology, they are distinct from the cardinal virtues or other virtues of character, which we can acquire and increase by practice. You want to be a just person, you continue to practice justice. You want to be a courageous person, you continue to practice bravery. If you want to be a hopeful person, sometimes just practicing hopefulness doesn't cut it. If you want to be a loving person, just practicing love may help you increase, but it doesn't necessarily get you to be a loving person in the first place. And if you want to have faith in something, a belief that something is true and so, even though you may not be able to prove it qualitatively or quantitatively, but you know it matches your reality and your experience, where's that come from? Where's hope come from? Where's love come from? I've always wondered where those things originate from and how it is that we gravitate towards them and increase. So that kind of mystery behind those things is what got them called theological virtues, as if being from God might be the only way that we experience them or know them. I'm not sure I agree with that, but I do love the idea of the theological virtues as different. Not just a matter of we'll practice it and we'll get there. That's my look at hope.
One is Miguel de la Torre's theology of hopelessness.
Hope punk and the theological virtue of hope. Thanks for walking with us this morning. Until next time, Pancake and I love you. Bye.
Check out my website and blog at tonylorenzen.com for even more resources that will open your mind, touch your heart, and inspire your spirit.